Hey guys, this is Comic Uno and Comic Frontline, and today I'm doing Comic Uno episode 205. In this show, I review all the comics I've read this week, to worst pick of the week, to best pick of the week, and everything in between. So let's get started. What was worst pick of the week? This week was kind of a short week for me. I only got 16 books. So getting started with number 16, worst pick of the week, was very obvious for me this week, and that was Edge of Venomverse issue 5. I just wasn't into this one. It's finally the last issue of these Edge of Venomverse books, which I did like 2 out of the 5, but didn't really like the other ones. But with this one, it's Deadpool obviously getting the Venom. I didn't really like any of the jokes that they were trying to do. It was kind of disgusting, the Parasite story that they were doing. I could not get into it. And of course the ending is that Deadpool Venom meets up with the other Venoms and says, hey, let's join up and, you know, deal with whatever Venomverse is going to deal with. And that's pretty much the story. So I'm going to give this 1.5 stars. It definitely just wasn't my thing. For a Deadpool book, I want to laugh, and I didn't really laugh at all either. So didn't really get much from this one. So I gave that 1.5 stars, and that is number 16. Now moving on to number 15, which I did move this book digitally, and that is Cable issue 4. I'm really excited for this arc to be over. I just want to see what the next arc will be, and if I don't like that, I probably will drop Cable, but it's just so slow, and it's more of kind of like a movie plot than a comic plot. And obviously pacing for a movie and comics are different, visuals for a movie and comics are different, and that's why it just doesn't work here. It's Cable trying to collect something, he's changed the past, and men are going after him. It's a very simplistic plot that I'm just not really enjoying. It kind of reminds me of 90s comics in a way, which is interesting because Cable's like the ultimate 90s comic book character, but, you know, big guns, big muscles. So I guess for people that are really big fans of Cable from the 90s, you'll really like this, but I feel like Cable's grown as a character since then, so that's the Cable I like at least. So I'm going to give that 2 stars, still sticking with it to see what the next arc is, but if I don't like that, then I'll probably drop this series. And also the artwork is pretty solid, so that's why it was higher than Edge of Venomverse. So I gave that one 2 stars. Now moving on to number 14, which is Detective Comics issue 963. You guys know I'm a huge Stephanie Brown fan, and I'm just not really liking the direction of her character. Also, I feel like the pacing of this was really off. Nothing really happens besides Anarchy saying, alright, here's my plan for Gotham. And Stephanie's like, oh, that's cool. That sounds like an awesome plan. And it's just Stephanie following all the men in her life. It's her first following Tim, which is understandable because they were in a relationship, so I get that. And I did like the cute scene between her and Tim because we actually got to see her personality of wanting fast food and taking pictures with her boyfriend. That was very Stephanie of her to do and not really caring about her secret identity. So I enjoyed that, but everything else is just she's always following, you know, another person. It's Tim or Batman, now Anarchy, a person she doesn't know. She's like, oh, you know, that sounds like a good plan. I hate you, Batman. So it's just so out of character for Stephanie. And the artwork's solid, though. We did like the art. It makes the talking heads a bit bearable in this issue, but I'm not enjoying the current arc for Stephanie Brown here. So I'm going to give Detective Comics issue 963 2 stars, and that was number 14. Moving on to number 13, which is Secret Empire issue 9. If you love this book, you're going to continue to love it. If you don't, you're going to continue to be bored by it. And for me, I haven't been enjoying Secret Empire. It's just not my thing. I'm not a huge Captain America fan, but I wanted to see it through because obviously it's going to lead into Marvel Legacy, which I am excited for, and I've been reading it since the beginning, so I'm not going to drop it here. But yeah, it's mostly a fighting issue. It's the Avengers / Marvel Universe fighting against Captain America's army, and then realizing, but we still need to fight Captain America. And then the other Captain America starting to get his memories back, and that's pretty much the story. It's pretty simplistic. It's everything you knew was going to happen in Secret Empire. So I gave this 2.5 stars. Artwork solid though, and again, if you've been enjoying the event, I still think you're going to like it. So 2.5 for me. Moving on to number 12, which was, you know, a bit lower than usual, but the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, it's issue 18. Just wasn't interested in the villain here. I'm never interested in this guy. I'm forgetting his name now. But it's Rita's little minion. I'm trying to find it. I think it's Forge, his name is. I always forget his name. But yeah, he's the creepy villain, and they try to do this kind of creepy story arc here, but I wasn't feeling it. It didn't feel like a Power Rangers issue to me. It felt like you didn't get enough of their personality. Jason you got a little bit from, but everyone else, you didn't get a lot of character stuff here. So overall, I'm going to give this 2.5 stars. I was a bit disappointed with this one, but I am excited for Go-Go Power Rangers next week because I've been loving that one, as I wear my Power Rangers shirt. But number 11 is Josie and the Pussycats, issue 9, not 4, issue 9, which is kind of over the top. So if you're enjoying Josie and the Pussycats and enjoying the over-the-top comedy, you're gonna like this. It's Archie and the gang getting kidnapped, there's robots, there's, you know, Mad Max version of Josie and the Pussycats gang going up against them, so I just felt like there was way too much going on, and that's why I couldn't give this higher than 2.5 stars, but some of the comedy was good. I liked the interactions, but just hasn't been there for me. You know, I've been enjoying some of the issues of Josie, but just not the comedy that I usually like. I do like that Josie's growing as a character. I do appreciate that. So I gave that 2.5 stars. Moving on to number 10, which is Action Comics, issue 986. This was better than the last issue. I felt like it was structured a little bit better, and at least we got something from Oz and in a lead up to the Oz effect, which will be the next issue of Action Comics, which obviously this was a filler issue to get there. I like it, Superman saving Lex, and you get a little bit of their dynamic, but it's still kind of a slow issue. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I felt like this was better. And also the artwork is a bit rough for the book. I don't really like the line work. I just feel like it was kind of rushed overall, the artwork. So Action Comics is okay issue. It's kind of this middle ground issue for me. So Action Comics issue 986 gets 3 stars, and that was number 10, I believe. Yes. Number 9, I was disappointed to see this lower in the middle because I thought I was going to like this more, but Generations, The Mighty Thor, and The Unworthy Thor, issue 1. So this issue does a good job at setting up some Marvel Legacy stuff. Odin had a relationship with the Phoenix. Interesting, I guess. But I wanted more from Jane and Odin's son. You know, that's why I bought the book. And what Generations has been doing very well, especially in Jean Grey and in Wolverine, it's making these relationships between the mentor and the mentee and having a really great character-driven or emotional story between them. And here, you don't really get that. They are hardly talking throughout the issue, and when they do, it feels a bit rushed, because, like, where did this lead up come from? Even when they're fighting, they're kind of fighting on different sides of the battlefield, so they're not interacting that much. Jane doesn't come in until the middle of the issue, but the most interesting part is the parallels of this version of Unworthy Thor, the Thor before the hammer, and of course the Unworthy Thor we have now. So I thought that was cool. Like I said, it was interesting that we actually got some plot progression in this too, because the other Generations have really just been one-shots and not leading into anything, and for Wolverine and Jean Grey that worked, but this book, I feel like I would rather have just the storyline of the characters than giving us small plot progression, because we haven't seen enough from Jane and Odin's son, and that's been a disappointment for me. I want to see more of their interaction. So I gave this 3 stars. I was a bit disappointed with it, but I guess it's still worth picking up if you're reading Thor or Marvel Legacy. Alright, moving on to number 8, which is Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man issue 3, which story-wise I thought was pretty fun. It's Peter, Human Torch, and Teresa, who is Peter's not sister, teaming up. We get to see Teresa get her own suit. That was fun. There were times where I think jokes go on for too long and the dialogue's really heavy. That I don't particularly like, but it's an interesting story with the characters. I like the interaction. I like the ending where J. Jonah Jameson gets a lead on Teresa being this bad person, and at least seeing that she's a bad person and against the U.S. So I thought that was interesting that J. Jonah Jameson got that information, and we'll see what he ends up doing with it, that she's in a picture with Spider-Man. And the Kingpin stuff was okay. I think that was kind of the more boring part, but artwork also I think could be a lot better. It's really simplistic at times where they don't even have like full faces. So I think the artwork could be a little bit better for me. But it's still a fun issue to read. So I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. Alright, moving on to number 7, which is Nightwing The New Order issue 1. And I like this issue. I like seeing like a villainous side of Nightwing. I think the build-up of the story could have been better. I don't completely understand why Nightwing did any of this. It just pretty much says, oh, because he had to. But why? You know, it's such a different take for Nightwing, but hopefully the miniseries will explain it. But I like the cliffhanger of his son having powers and obviously Dick Grayson having to make a decision. What does he do with this? And we find out that, you know, his mother had superpowers. Who was the mother? You're curious about that. Was it maybe Corey? At first I'm like, oh, maybe the mother was Batgirl because it mentioned that she left. So I thought, you know, Barbara would have went the route of her own mother. But maybe it's Corey. We don't know. Maybe it's someone we really don't know. So that piques my interest to see where that goes. So yeah, I think some of the plot and world building could have been better, but I am intrigued to see where this one goes. So Nightwing issue 1 gets 3.5 stars. Alright, moving on to number 6, which is Red Sonja issue 8. This is definitely one of the better issues of Red Sonja. I like the balance between Max going back to his world and learning more about that, and Red Sonja still learning about our world, and her learning how to fight, and then one of her friends is really rich, and we learn more about her family, and then she ends up stealing her mom's, you know, car, so I like that, and then her mom calls her a bitch, which I thought was really funny, but yeah, I like it. The artwork still is okay, it's like in the middle, but I like the story here, so I gave this one 3.5 stars, and that was number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is Bette Page, issue 2, a book I've been really enjoying, and issue 1 I really enjoyed. Issue 2 is a bit of a step down because it's less set up and it's more of Bette Page as being an agent, but I like it. I like her balance. I really love her voice in this book. You know, she's snarky and she just wants to have a thrill in life. And then we find out, you know, she's making this movie about aliens pretty much and going up against aliens. And then we find out that she actually has to go up against like real aliens. She sees this guy going into a saucer. So I thought that was a cool cliffhanger. And artwork's been really consistent. I do like the artwork here. And I like the book. It's a cool spy book of a character you wouldn't expect to be a spy. So Bette Page issue 2 gets 3.5 stars, and that is number 5. Now moving on to number 4, which is one of the best X-Men Gold issues so far, and that is X-Men Gold issue 10. The artwork was a lot better here, even though the coloring sometimes is a bit too gold for me. I know that's weird to say, but they always go for like this yellow tint and it doesn't work all the time. Like this is an example of that. But the artwork is really solid. You know, there's times where they don't completely have faces, but when they do have faces, it's good. And I think it fit the tone of them going to Russia. I liked it. I like the artwork here, finally. I think this is the best artwork we've gotten from X-Men Gold. But the story's solid too, which it's been solid, of Kitty and Peter maybe being back together and everyone's like, what's going on? But really, this is a Peter and Magic driven story where Magic gets kidnapped by this Russian gang, and then they find out that they have an uncle, and do you trust the uncle, do you not? And then Omega Red's kind of put into the mix of it all. So I liked it. I thought it was a really solid book with some great character moments and an interesting story. So X-Men Gold issue 10 gets a solid 4 stars. Now moving on to number 3, which is Batgirl issue 14. I was really looking forward to this book because it's Nightwing and Batgirl interacting, and I always love seeing them interact. And we get to see secrets from their past. It's Batgirl in high school, you know, that blossoming romance between Nightwing and Batgirl's happening, where it's like, will they, won't they, which is interesting. And you're seeing that they're starting to like each other. But we also get to see this interesting build-up of the villain, where the villain was a substitute teacher and also working at the Olive Garden pretty much with Barbara. So you see they're interacting, they're becoming friends as Barbara and this girl. And you don't see her becoming a villain in the past just yet, but it's referenced like, oh, what do you think happened to her? Well, you know, that big night that happened, I don't know what happened with her. So it's this mystery of why she's a villain, how she became a villain, and this present mystery of, is this current villain her or not? So I like the storyline with the villain. I definitely like the character interactions between Nightwing and Batgirl. I do think the artwork's a bit lanky at times, and a lot of times they make like the same facial expressions. But other than that, I thought this was a solid book, and if you're a Nightwing and Batgirl fan, I definitely recommend you pick this one up. So I gave this 4 stars, and that is number 3. Now moving on to number 2, which is Archie, issue 23. I enjoyed this book. I like it's the aftermath of what happened to Betty, but not in her perspective, which I also dislike because I do want to see Betty's perspective, but it's everyone trying to chip in to help Betty with her volunteer work, and everyone realizes the whole town needs to help her because she's done a lot. And then Archie, you know, really feeling guilty of what happened, realizing his feelings for Betty, and just wanting to help and always being a screw-up because he's Archie. So it's interesting to see how the town also helps him out and how Veronica reacts. I really like that, where she doesn't like get jealous over Archie's feelings for Betty, but she just completely understands and wants to help Archie help Betty. So you know, such a touching ending where they make this like ritual with these candles of making like a heart with Betty Cooper. I thought was really touching, and you just see the whole town helping out. Like the whole town is gone, you know. Pops is empty, the school's empty, so I thought that was pretty cool. And our work is solid. I feel like it could be a bit more detailed with the emotional scenes, but overall I think it nails the comedic scenes. And then of course I really like Betty's reaction to her own trauma, or you know, her own tragedy, where she's like, oh, you know what, I have a chance to walk, then I'm gonna walk. So I'm really excited to see that journey and her really push herself. I'm very excited for that story, and hopefully we get her point of view in the next issue. But Archie issue 23 gets 4.5 stars. Really enjoyed this one, and it's been such a good arc so far. And we're kind of moving into the next arc, but it's still a continuation of Over the Edge. Now, number 1, this was a no-brainer for me this week. I love this book, and that was Hi-Fi Fight Club, issue 1. Damn, I had such a fun time with this book. We see this, this is story taking place in 1998, and our main character is Chris. And this girl, she's starting to work at Vinyl Mayhem, and she's a new employee, and she's trying to figure out her relationships with her other employees and get to learn the other employees very well. You know, she has a crush on this girl Maggie. She has an arch nemesis already that she doesn't consider arch nemesis, but Dolores considers them arch nemesis, so I thought that was funny. But by the end, we get a mystery unraveling that one of the lead singers of this famous band at the time goes missing. So we see that the vinyl store actually is a front for a fight club, a vigilante fight club, and Chris is finally put into the know, where she's worrying, oh, I just want to be friends with everybody, I want to have relationships with people, and now she's just like, what? I didn't expect that. So now she's being initiated into this fight club, and I loved it. I love this story. It's cute, it's feisty, it's so character driven, but also the pacing for the mystery, the overall plot is really well done here too. Really just one of the best issue 1s I've read in a really long time. I just can't wait for issue 2. The characters are so addicting, but also the plot is just so interesting. And it's a cool contrast of Vinyl Store Vigilante Club. So I really enjoyed this one. Artwork is so fun too. Really liked the facial expressions, just everything. The colors, it's bright. Do yourself a favor and pick this one up. It's something different and just a really fun read. So I gave this one 5 stars, and that was an obvious pick of the week for me. So that was number 1. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This was Comic Uno episode 205. This is the show where, again, I review all the comics, worst pick of the week to best pick of the week. So, of course, I'll have Comic Uno episode next week. And this was Comic Frontline Comic Uno, and I'll see you guys later. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below, there are links for my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter. And don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father, Like Daughter. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.